Everyone. I want to point out here before I get started that Donald Trump is not in charge of Iran's foreign policy. He's not in charge of whether or not they attacked the US base in Iraq. He is not in charge of whether or not they gave the go-ahead for a surface-to-air missile to take down the plane full of Iranian Canadians. He is not in charge of their foreign policy, period. Not in charge of their military either. And if Donald Trump moved to take out a terrorist in the Middle East with a drone strike, well, that's something that Barack Obama engaged in quite regularly and didn't suffer any blowback at all for. I mean, it's very interesting to compare apples to apples, and when you say one's very peaceful and one is not, and really to look at what has happened in reality instead of the news's spin on everything, and we'll get to that in just a minute. It's really quite shocking. But Donald Trump is not in charge of Iran's policies. Donald Trump is in charge of the United States policies. And the United States was responding to attacks against it and further planned attacks against it. And had another president done what Trump has done, most of the time they would be celebrated in the press. So that's where we're going to start. But we're going to hear the CBC and other news articles talking about how this is Trump's fault. First, Justin Trudeau, and Justin Trudeau's language on a different note is very interesting. Here he is, and this is a meme, but we're going to actually hear where he talks about this twice as a plane crash after admitting there is evidence and credible evidence from allies and from Canadian sources that this was a surface-to-air missile, right? So, but he calls it a crash. He says, quote, well, not quote, this is quoting the meme. "We need a full, complete, and credible investigation into why the plane crashed into an anti-aircraft missile." Memes tell the story. Memes tell the story. Here's the Globe and Mail, and this is an opinion piece, and the headline is, "On Iran, Trump proves it again. He's too big to fail." And the author goes through as unflattering a history of Trump as he can possibly manage before getting to this point here. He says, "Had Mr. Trump made a proportionate response to Iran's provocation, no near conflagration would have occurred." Really? Really? Are you sure about that? Had Trump not responded to Iran's aggression, maybe we'd be in a worse situation than where we are now. Possibly. Certainly the United States would look a lot weaker had Trump not followed through, right? I mean, I think that's ignoring some very real, very cogent parts of the story, right? Like a military action and all of this is, there's pantomime and kabuki theater involved. If a state does something like threatens to bring to target all of their cultural sites, 52 cultural sites, right? And then there's provocation, then the world is watching. And if you don't act out what you say, then you lose credibility, right? Like this is how it's worked forever. I was talking with my mother-in-law the other day and talked about back channels and Khrushchev. And a lot of people think that there's back channels in action between Iran and Trump, and that Trump emptied out the base and greenlit the assault. So I don't know if that's true or not, but back channels and kabuki theater is all a part of the world that we live in, right? As well as propagandized press, right? In the United States and in Canada, across the West, across the world, right? What the governments want out there is what's put out there, right? But also when governments take action, there is more expected and decorum and expected tit for tat. Iran cited a UN convention for being able to retaliate. So that was a really long way to get to that. There's convention for this. There's history for this, right? But the author of this ignores all of that, right? Ignores all of that and says, but the upshot is that he's eliminated the adversary's top general while taking no hit himself. On the face of it, a big win. But there are other caveats. Everything could go off the rails. And he said, on Thursday, Iran was promising harsher revenge for the death of their cult-like military cutthroat. Okay, maybe, but also, no. Right? They said that they're done with retaliation, and if Trump doesn't retaliate on the rockets, then it's all done. Now, Canada's in a bit of a checkmate position because we've got this down jet with Canadians on board, and everybody's expecting Trudeau to respond. And the response is, we've got to investigate that plane crash that was a missile. Really? We'll get there. We'll get there. But here's another piece. This is, oh, well, yeah, I was going to say, you don't have to worry too much about what the Globe and Mail thinks, though. They posted this yesterday. Like, this is, I can't believe that I'm pointing this out just because it's so dumb, right? Like, the Globe and Mail is bad and they should feel bad. The headline is, when is a beard more than a beard? When it's on Justin Trudeau's face. Moving on. Back to Trump's fault. Here's Robin Urbach, former CBC columnist, and now I think she works at the Globe. See the last comment, right? But she says, quote, idiots are going to spend today arguing about whether to blame Iran for actually shooting down the plane or the U.S. for escalating the violence. But the bottom line is a bunch of Canadians are dead because of something that has little to do with us. So that noise. She says, all right, you've convinced me fighting on the internet is the answer. Well, I just think it's silly to try and blame the U.S. It was Iran that started the conflict in the first place and then escalated it by attacking the base in Iraq. So, I mean, I think that's weird. Here's a video of a CBC reporter positioning all of this as Trump's fault, and then Justin Trudeau doesn't bother to correct him on it. Here we go.
Hi, Prime Minister. I just want to circle back to an earlier question. If the intelligence is accurate, then it seems this is the end result of a sequence of events that was sparked by the drone strike ordered by the U.S. president. So given the information you have, how much responsibility does the United States bear for this tragedy?
The evidence suggests that this is the likely cause, but we need to have...
Hi, Prime Minister.
And, you know, you maybe take that opportunity to say unequivocally that, no, this is not the fault of our closest ally, and no, it's not Donald Trump's fault. But here's another CBC reporter, and Canada Buster, he says, watch CBC's Katie Simpson claim Donald Trump may be responsible for the death of 63 Canadians aboard Flight PS 752. And this is the most direct blaming I've seen. Here we go.
63 Canadians dead because of the unintended consequences of a decision made by the U.S. president. And that's going to be a big question because...
Nope, it wasn't because of the unintended consequences of Donald Trump's decision. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump's decision. Zero. Here is yesterday afternoon. Iran is denying Ukraine plane was hit by a missile. Here's their statement. This is 4 p.m. yesterday. Okay, so 4:38 p.m. yesterday, 13 hours ago. It says Iran denied on Thursday that a Ukrainian airliner that crashed near Tehran had been hit by a missile. Iranian government spokesman Ali Rabi said in a statement according to state TV, quote, all these reports are psychological warfare against Iran. All those countries whose citizens were aboard the plane can send representatives, and we urge Boeing to send its representative to join the process of investigating the black box. And here is BBC 5 hours ago. So just to give context, they are reporting Iran plane crash. Western powers suggest missile-downed jet. And I'm not going to go through this. We're going to watch footage of it right now or next. Okay, so we're going to watch the footage and then listen to what that guy has to say. Here we go. It's not great footage and there's not a lot of audio, but it's very quick. I'm going to show it again. So there's the missile. There's it hitting the jet. And then if you watch, there's longer. I don't know why there's no sound. There should be sound. But I don't know why there's no sound. Anyway, I've seen other footage of this, or maybe it's from other phones or something to that effect. And you hear the shockwave like close to the end of the video. So it's chilling. And I stand by what I said yesterday. What an awful, awful, awful way to go. I mean, just terrible. Here is, here's Canada Buster again. He says, former Trudeau appointed ambassador says, if Iran shot down Flight PS 752, killing 63 Canadians, there shouldn't be any repercussions. This happens sometimes. Sorry if the volume's not great. It's all up as far as it can go.
Or will the approach have to change if the outcome of whatever investigation takes place shows there's some kind of nefarious action that was taken that brought down that plane?
I don't think so, because I think if there is an investigation and it is shown that it was brought down by an anti-aircraft missile, for example, it would have been an accident. There's no way the Iranians would have targeted this intentionally.
Can you be sure of that?
Well, there were Iranian citizens on it, and I would see no reason why they would do this. This wouldn't be the first time. I mean, the Americans, I think it was in the late 80s, they shot down an Iranian airliner over the Gulf by accident. And so these things sometimes happen. You had a very high tense period at the time this came down, so if it was an accidental shoot down, first of all, I don't think the Iranians will admit it, but if it turns out that that's in fact the case, I don't think there should be any repercussions This happens sometimes.
I wonder, though, if the families, of course, of those 63 Canadians will accept.
So I think that, one, weird to position this as all Donald Trump's fault. And two, weird to say, yeah, if they did shoot the missile, if they did shoot it, no repercussions. These things happen. Whoops. Whoops. Whoa. Here's Donald Trump. And just before this, he's talking about having speculation that it was shot down. But he says it was flying in a very rough neighborhood. Here you go.
It's a tragic thing. When I see that, it's a tragic thing. But somebody could have made a mistake on the other side. Could have made a mistake. It was flying. It was flying in not our system. No, it has nothing to do with us. It was flying in a pretty rough neighborhood, and somebody could have made a mistake. Some people say it was mechanical. I personally don't think that's even a question. Personally, so we'll see what happens. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't want to get. That's up to them. At some point, they'll release the black box. Ideally, they'd get it to Boeing, but if they gave it to France or if they gave it to some other country, that would be okay too. I think, ideally that will be released. I have a feeling that it's just something very terrible happened.
And here's Trudeau yesterday afternoon. Oh, first, I was looking for the U.S. intelligence. There is a report, and Trump says. I saw a report yesterday, and I didn't flag it, but Trump was saying that it was U.S. intelligence confirms that Iran shot down the plane. We have footage, like satellite footage of the missile being shot, and there's all of it. As soon as I find that link, I'll put it into the description as well. Or you could check out CanadaReport.co. I put a bunch of links up there. Anything that doesn't make the show or anything I've been flagging, I've been putting in there too. So check that out. I think it's ready, but it's still new. So check it out if you're interested. But I saw that video yesterday, but I was looking for it again today, and there's no CBC News coverage of this. The U.S. intelligence Iran plane shot down. This is ITV News. This is NBC, ABC, The Sun. The Sun, I think that's United Kingdom. If that's Canadian, The Sun, then I apologize. And good job, The Sun. But I think that's UK. DW, Fox, NBC, CNBC, VOA, Bloomberg, CNN, CGTN, Arrange News, right? Like, there's no Canadian coverage of this. Sky News, CPAC. CPAC is the first Canadian, and it's the first full hour and 16 conference. That's what we're going to watch right now. And I'm just going to show you the important part where he says crash, but yeah, it was a missile, but we've got to investigate this crash. Unbelievable. Okay, here we go.
Since last addressing Canadians, there have been ongoing discussions. Since I last addressed Canadians, there have been ongoing discussions with foreign ministers, senior intelligence and military officials, including the fourth meeting of our incident response group. There have been important developments regarding the potential causes of this deadly crash, developments of which Canadians should be made aware. The news.
He just said deadly crash. Okay?
This will undoubtedly come as a further shock to the families who are already grieving in the face of this unspeakable tragedy. We have intelligence from multiple sources, including our allies and our own intelligence. The evidence indicates that the plane was shot down by an Iranian surface-to-air missile.
Okay, so do you refer to a plane that was shot down by an Iranian surface-to-air missile as a crash? I don't generally know, right? That plane was shot down. That was a bad action, right? Like, you don't say, oh, that unfortunate crash that, somebody standing on the ground shooting that missile caused, unfortunately. If we could only figure it out, what happened? They set up the surface-to-air missile, and then everybody was good to go, and, 3 guys were like, no, don't hit the button, and somebody was like, boop. Really? Like, an accident? Come on. What? Back to this. He's going to go back to crash. That's the reason we're going to keep listening. Here we go.
This may well have been unintentional. This new information reinforces the need for a thorough investigation into this matter. Canada is working with its allies to ensure that a thorough and credible investigation is conducted to determine the causes of this fatal crash.
It was a matter 10 seconds ago and now a crash. But it was a surface-to-air missile. We need to investigate this crash. It was a surface-to-air missile. It was like, here's video. It was a surface-to-air missile, right? There you go. The missile, boom, right? What is the investigation? We're going to look at the black box and they're going to say, oh, it was an unfortunate running into a missile. So it's definitely Donald Trump's fault, though. How could Donald Trump have avoided this, everyone? It's so disingenuous. It's so ridiculous. And our government is just floundering. Like anybody who's looking at this critically, well, just the language flip-flops here. And am I wrong? If I'm wrong about the crash thing, if I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, I will pin the comment that tells me I'm wrong. Please do. If I'm wrong, I will admit it. And I'll talk about it on my next show, maybe later today. There's lots going on, but I have a lot to do. So I've got lots to do. So that's why I've only been on one video a day. There's lots coming there's lots happening. So anyway, regardless, thanks for watching, everybody. This all stinks. It stinks to high heaven, right? It's not Donald Trump's fault. Canada should have a strong response other than, oh, we're going to investigate. What could possibly have happened? What could possibly have made this surface-to-air missile fire and hit that plane, right? I mean, does the Trump derangement syndrome go that far, right? Is that how far we've gone? Trump's terrible when Iran shot that missile at us. It was his fault. At their own plane with their own citizens. And who among us believe that the Iranian regime is above killing their own citizens, especially with the connection to uranium-1? And there is a connection to uranium-1. There's a whole bunch of digging going on. And again, check out CanadaReport.co. I've posted reports about other people's reports about that, talking about the connection with uranium-1. And man, what's going on, right? Stinks to high heaven. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com and have a wonderful, wonderful day.